Over the years, the amusement industry has built some truly unbelievable roller coasters. What's more, the sheer insanity of these attractions is only matched by the stories and tall tales that get told about them. Sometimes these rumors end up being true, but what happens when these stories take a detour into absurdity? You get some of the most outrageous roller coaster rumors ever conceived. So as voted on by the viewers, here are just some of the craziest roller coaster rumors of all time. Number 10. The launch lift hill on Wicker at England's Alton Towers. First opening in 2018, Wicker was the first wooden roller coaster to come to the UK in 22 years. Built by American manufacturer Great Coasters International, this airtime-packed coaster was the first to combine wood and fire via a series of special effects. Speaking of which, during the ride's development, the online rumor mill was fired up with some pretty spicy theories. You see, Alton Towers can't build past the tree line, all at the request of local residents who don't wish to see or hear the park from their houses. At one point, online enthusiasts took note of a proposed silent magnetic lift system that was in the ride's original plans. Even more noteworthy was the shape of the lift hill. Based on the plans, the lift hill seemed to stop partway up, containing a straight section of track. Many assumed this was where the holding brake would be, with an LSM launch system following immediately afterwards. If true, this would have made it the second launched wooden roller coaster after Dollywood's recently opened Lightning Rod. Unfortunately for launchaholics though, there would be no such system on this coaster. In reality, the brake run was positioned near the start of the lift hill, but the lift hill had a height limit it couldn't exceed. So the lift changes angles in the middle to allow it to clear over the brake run while also keeping the ride within the park's height restriction. So no silent launch, just some good old-fashioned roller coaster tycoon ingenuity. What's especially hilarious is that the system they went with is anything but silent. The lift hill, with its standard anti-rollback system, is about as quiet as an Iron Maiden concert, or so I've been told. It's unknown what happened to the proposed silent lift hill technology, but even if a launch was planned at some point, it's easy to see the technical nightmares of Lightning Rod putting the kibosh on these plans. Number 9. The drop track on Mystic Timbers at Ohio's Kings Island. First opening in 2017, Mystic Timbers is an excellent wooden roller coaster at Kings Island. Like Wicker it is also constructed by Great Coasters International, so that's 2 GCIs in a row here. Shortly after the ride's announcement, the park teased a mysterious shed at the end of the coaster. They even coined the hashtag #What'sInTheShed. Speculation ran rampant, and eager coaster enthusiasts took this speculation to the next level. Perhaps the most common thing that was rumored by fans was a drop track. This element brings riders to a horizontal section of track which allows a full train of passengers to drop vertically. This is done with a mechanism that drops the segment of track with the train and guests on board. This theory, however, had a big problem. Based on the rendering of the shed that was released, there was no way it would be possible. The drop track mechanism is fairly large and it requires a lot of space, but the shed is built on a wooden support structure that you can see through. So unless the train could magically no-clip through the wooden structure, this was not possible. When the ride finally opened, the shed was revealed to be a heavily themed brake run. Inside are props and lighting effects, along with a projection screen showing one of 3 monsters attacking the train. While this was a cool way to make waiting to enter the station more interesting, some of the more ornery enthusiasts vented their frustration at the lack of a drop track. Alas, not even in Ohio can you no-clip through a wooden structure. It's also worth noting that some of the other things that were rumored were an inversion and a backwards launch, which is honestly hysterical. Number 8. Vekoma damaged Aero development. What can I say about Aero that hasn't already been said? They were the true pioneer of coaster innovation and gave the industry some truly groundbreaking rides. They gave us the first ever steel tubular coaster with Matterhorn and created the corkscrew model, the world's first successful looping steel coaster. Back in the 70s, Aero was constantly evolving, and they were interested in selling their coasters internationally. To make manufacturing more efficient and cost-effective, they found a partner across the ocean in the form of Dutch manufacturer Vekoma. Vekoma initially handled the steel supports for Aero's European coasters, but they later branched out and started manufacturing coasters on their own. Vekoma made a licensing deal with Aero to construct their style of coasters in Europe, and this is where many mistakenly assume Aero was done wrong. In the documentary, The Legacy of Aero Development, Vekoma's relationship with Arrow was portrayed negatively. The documentary states, quote, "The plan backfired, and Vekoma began building their own trains and manufacturing a variant of Arrow's track design for themselves. Arrow's once revered skill and trade secrets were all but gone." This documentary fueled the belief that Vekoma swiped Arrow's track design from under the table. Even today, many blame Vekoma for Arrow initially going bankrupt in the 1980s. However, there's a couple of details that are often overlooked. First, Arrow's bankruptcy was not due to Vekoma taking their business. In actuality, it was a result of their costly involvement in the 1984 World's Fair, coupled with their ambitious expansion and taking on more projects than they could afford to build at the time. Secondly, when Vekoma started building their own coasters, they didn't cut ties with Arrow entirely. In fact, they continued to purchase trains from Arrow, so Vekoma actually helped Arrow out during their financial struggles. Let's make it clear, Vekoma obtained the license to build coasters in Arrow's style fair and square. Number 7. The washing machine element on the Smiler at Alton Towers. First opening in 2013, this attraction took and still holds the record for the most upside-down moments on any roller coaster. During its development phase, this record was guessed pretty early on by park fans. At the time though, the original plans for the ride hinted at a mere 8 inversions. This set the stage for some serious speculation. Park fans undoubtedly pondered how on earth the ride would claim the inversion record with just 8 of them. After all, Colossus at England's Thorpe Park had 10, and that had been in operation since 2002. Well, park fans had a rather interesting theory that would allow this record to be broken without changing the plans. Introducing the washing machine element. This rotating tunnel was a popular rumor on fan site Towers Times, and was even given a full fan rendering by website officials. The theoretical element went like this. The train would enter the tunnel, where it would be spun in a barrel roll 4 times. It would then complete the rest of the ride, resulting in a 12 inversion coaster. Can we just take a moment to appreciate the boldness of such a concept? And aside from that, can you imagine the maintenance nightmare a rotating tunnel like this would be? Not to mention what would happen if riders got stuck upside down. Talk about a major bar for Rama. As unbelievable as this seems in hindsight, the original plans made this a real possibility for many. On the contrary, Alton Towers was actually playing a clever ruse. The fact was that the park had always planned for the Smiler to feature 14 inversions, but they decided to keep 6 of them hidden from the initial plans in order to avoid letting the cat out of the bag too early. What park fans ended up getting was an impressive record breaker that was perfectly engineered for extreme thrill seekers. Still though, the rotating tunnel concept was a fascinating idea, and don't be surprised if you see it in your dreams or your nightmares tonight. Number 6. Top Thrill 2's 500-foot spike at Ohio Cedar Point. One of the most talked about recent coaster developments is the reimagining of Top Thrill Dragster, soon to be reborn as Top Thrill 2. Over the years, this coaster faced countless technical difficulties. Even former Cedar Fair CEO Dick Kinzel called this ride his dumbest decision. However, despite its problems, the ride has still maintained a die-hard fanbase over the years. As a result, Cedar Point wasn't ready to tear down this iconic coaster. Instead, they decided to give it a new lease on life. In 2024, this coaster will open with a more reliable magnetic launch, bidding farewell to the old problematic hydraulic system. Since magnetic launches are less powerful than hydraulic ones though, this ride will use a swing launch system, so there won't just be one launch. The first launch will now take the train only part way up the 420-foot top hat. After rolling backwards, a switch track system will send it into a reverse spike of track. Guests will go backwards up the spike in order to gain enough momentum to complete the final launch. The final launch will take guests to the original top speed of 120 miles per hour, allowing the vehicle to complete the top hat. This reimagining seems simple enough, but fan speculation made it out to be completely psychotic. Some let their imaginations run wild, with ambitious theories that may cause you to do a spit take. One bizarre assumption was that Top Thrill Dragster would reclaim the record for the world's tallest coaster. Many predicted the reverse spike early on, but some thought the spike was going to be 500 feet for the sole purpose of reclaiming the tallest coaster record from King to Ka. From the beginning, it was pretty clear why the spike wouldn't be 500 feet though. The top hat element is 420 feet. A 500-foot spike simply wouldn't be necessary to provide the train with enough momentum to climb up the other end. In fact, it might make the train go way too fast unless there were brakes before the top hat, which would be a hell of a buzzkill. And let's be real here, do we really expect Cedar Point to invest in a 500-foot spike they don't need? Manufacturing track costs a ton of money. Why spend it on track that will never be needed? Although enthusiasts certainly have good imaginations, sometimes reality brings us back down to earth. Fortunately, with Top Thrill 2 on the horizon, we will soon find out just how insane this ride really is. Number 5. Magnum XL 200 sinking into the sand at Cedar Point. Here's yet another Cedar Point rumor, this time involving the revolutionary Magnum XL 200. This ride was the first full-circuit roller coaster to exceed the 200-foot height threshold. Adding to its allure, this remarkable coaster was beautifully positioned on Cedar Point's picturesque peninsula, offering riders a breathtaking vista of Lake Erie. It's not every day that you can ride a major coaster that's on the beach. Shortly after its opening, an utterly laughable rumor began circulating about its location. This rumor claimed that Magnum XL 200 was gradually sinking into the very sand it was built upon. Just imagine coming back after the off-season to find the coaster halfway underground. Reportedly, this rumor originated in a local newspaper as an April Fool's prank. But as the internet rose to prominence, it grew into something many coaster fans actually believed. This rumor gained so much traction that Cedar Point officials had to step in and set the record straight on their official website. In their own words, contrary to popular belief, the Magnum XL 200 is not sinking and it is not being sold. Rest assured, Magnum XL 200 stands tall to this day, and there are no Sarlacc pits in Ohio that I'm aware of, so it isn't likely to sink into the sand anytime soon. Number 4. RMC Son of Beast at Kings Island. Admittedly, this one is partially my own fault. Yes, I helped spread this rumor. One of the most infamous roller coaster histories is that of Son of Beast at Kings Island. This ride opened as the tallest and fastest wooden coaster in the world, with an impressive vertical loop in its layout. However, this coaster was anything but successful. Construction issues, safety concerns, and maintenance woes forced Son of Beast to close in 2009, with the ride being torn down in 2012. It was certainly one of the biggest flops in roller coaster history. Shortly after its closure, American manufacturer Rocky Mountain Construction burst onto the scene with new Texas Giant. This reimagining of the old wooden coaster Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas involved giving the ride a new steel track and more intense elements. Many have speculated that if Son of Beast didn't close, it would have made for a great RMC reimagining. Some have even speculated what an RMC Son of Beast could have looked like, and this is where things get a bit embarrassing. In 2018, enthusiasts noticed a teaser poster that seemed to hint at a new addition for Kings Island. I myself noticed this poster and made a video on it pointing out a few things. First, there was the mention of Outpost 5, which was the name of Son of Beast Station. Then there was the reference to Southern Yellow Pine, which was the exact wood used for Son of Beast. My video ended up getting a lot of traction with Kings Island fans, and even WKYC News in Cincinnati featured it in a story. But as it turned out, I was barking up the wrong tree. These references were simply Easter eggs and were not at all intended to tease a reimagined Son of Beast. When you really think about it, why on earth would Kings Island reimagine a coaster that was a total failure for them? Well, some pointed this out at the time, but I still believed it was possible for some reason. Shortly after my video, Kings Island did announce a revival at their park. What's more, the park teased, quote, "something old will be new again," but it was of their antique cars ride. And just to add a cherry on top of this Sunday, I had the opportunity to speak with none other than RMC designer Alan Schilke that year. When I asked him about the RMC Son of Beast rumor, his response was, and I quote, "I'm glad that rumor wasn't true. But hey, at least I made the news." Number 3. Cedar Point's 500-foot T-Rex. This rumor was also partially fueled by me, though it was also fueled by RMC themselves. Now let me start by saying that Cedar Point has broken boundaries several times in its history. After all, it was the first park to have full-circuit coasters reach 200, 300, and 400 feet. So naturally, many Cedar Point fans have been eager to see the park build a 500-foot tall coaster. In 2018, this speculation caught on. At the same IAAPA Expo where I got to speak to Alan Schilke, I interviewed design engineer Colin Kuhn of Rocky Mountain Construction. I asked him about the company's upcoming projects, but at one point, I got into the subject of the T-Rex coaster, which was revealed years earlier. This large single-rail coaster was once heavily promoted by the company as their next major innovation. During my interview, Kuhn said the following about the T-Rex model.
Bigger track, obviously, and bigger trains. we're hoping to go, we can probably go 400 or 500 foot with that if we wanted to.
I was visibly shook by this remark, and it started a firestorm of speculation in the comments. From there, coaster fanatics started suggesting that Cedar Point would be the perfect place to build such a coaster. One user even created a fan rendering of what such a ride would look like. Since then, the rumor has snowballed, with many fans actually expecting this coaster to come to the park at some point. While unfortunately this isn't likely to happen anytime soon. According to a later interview I did with RMC, the company is mainly focused on the Raptor model. The cost of research and development would be astronomical with the T-Rex, and it's not as practical as the Raptor is. The Raptor has simply proven to be more appealing to potential buyers, which is why we've seen so many of them open as of late. From a park's perspective, why spend tens of millions on a 500-foot prototype with a massive steel track when you can still attract tons of guests with a Raptor? This isn't to say the T-Rex will never be built, but the 500-foot tall variant at Cedar Point is probably going to be a pipe dream. Number 2. Jodie Sweetin's death on Batman the Ride at Illinois Six Flags Great America. Now this one is just hilarious. This bizarre rumor involves an actress from Full House and one of the most iconic roller coasters in history, Batman the Ride. As many enthusiasts already know, Batman the Ride was the first ever inverted coaster by Swiss manufacturer Bolliger & Mabillard. At the time, it was a one-of-a-kind experience, with floorless seats that hung from the track. Not too long after its opening though, things got weird. Around that time, a woman from Wisconsin sent in a rather peculiar question to a Q&A column. She wanted to know if Jodie Sweetin, the actress known for her role as Stephanie Tanner on Full House, had bit the dust on Batman the Ride. And the source of this rumor? A few of her daughter's classmates had claimed that Sweetin had died on the coaster. Well, you have to keep in mind that the internet was still in its infancy, and you couldn't simply pull up the news on your Google app. As a result, the columnist had to be the voice of reason. They confirmed the rumor was entirely false. Moreover, they suggested that the girl spreading the story might have been motivated by jealousy towards Sweetin. But the best part of the story is what Sweetin herself had to say about it. In an interview with the Chicago Reader, she said the following about this rumor. "Who makes up this shit? It had to originate somewhere. It's so funny to me." So there you have it. Batman the Ride is safe, and Sweetin is still alive to this day. And hey, at least we got a funny story out of this. Number 1. The nets under roller coaster track are meant to catch the trains if they fall. This rumor takes the cake for sheer absurdity, and the worst part is, I heard it firsthand. So this happened at Six Flags America. It was here, right before I embarked on the infamous Mind Eraser, or as I like to call it, the worst coaster I've ever ridden, that I overheard a conversation that left me utterly flabbergasted. Near the entrance, there's a net strategically placed beneath the final brake run. Now you might think this net serves a straightforward purpose, to catch any loose objects that might accidentally fall from passengers, and you'd be absolutely right. But what I overheard next defied all logic. A fellow guest, apparently a master of roller coaster conspiracy theories, turned to her friend and confidently stated that the net was there to catch the entire roller coaster train if it were to somehow fall from the track. Now, forgive me, but let's take a moment to debunk this malarkey. Roller coaster trains are massive, weighing thousands of pounds. The idea that a net, situated at the end of the ride mind you, could catch an entire train hurtling through the air is nothing short of ridiculous. And consider this. Why on earth would anyone conceive the notion that roller coaster trains might just spontaneously fly off the track? I mean, sure, coasters can be intense, but they're engineered with precision to keep us, safe. Now to be fair, not everyone knows the specifics of how roller coasters work. I'm not going to sit here and declare myself the all-knowing emperor of coaster knowledge either. But the guest was an adult, not a 5-year-old child, so I would think that common sense would apply in this case. But alas, none was to be found in that moment of time. But on the bright side, it did make for a good laugh. Now it's time for the comment shoutout program. This is where I take 5 random comments from my previous video and read them out. These comments are from my top 10 most intense roller coasters video. Lightning Boat says, Steel Vengeance isn't overly extreme in my opinion, but it is forceful and whippy and is my personal number 1. Megan Jones says, Iron Gwazi literally left me speechless. It's such an amazing ride, absolutely a must ride. Northern Ride says, Boost mode on Tornado honestly felt so intense, I question how the wheels on the car could even take the force. I'm certain it's unofficially the most forceful coaster in the world in boost mode. From the way it feels, it has to be at least 7 Gs. Konabro Gaming says, I-305 is quite easily one of the most intense coasters I've been on, and I've ridden El Toro and King Ka. That first drop is ridiculous. And Mega Edge says, I gotta give an honorable mention to Tatsu's gigantic pretzel loop. One of, if not the most, intense feeling I've ever had on a ride. If you want to see your words in my next video, leave a comment down below and it may be selected. Please note though that inflammatory or spam comments will not be read. Thank you all so much, and if you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so once again at the link in the description. Thanks for watching everyone. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or you can check out my website at themeparkcrazy.com. And I'm on TikTok. This is Theme Park Crazy, and I'll see you all next time.